Hey everyone, it's Michael Zapersky, and welcome back to another episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. And today I am very excited to have Vanessa Bennett joining us. Vanessa, welcome.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's psyched to be here.
Yes, been looking forward to our conversation. So Vanessa, for those that aren't familiar with you and your work and your company, you are the co-founder and CEO of Next Evolution Performance, where you help businesses build high-performance teams using neuroscience. And so I know we're going to want to get into all that. You've worked with all types of clients in many different sectors. And you also have a very kind of interesting model that you're pursuing with your business partner, Alex, and the team of how you're building out the business. So I know there's a lot that we want to cover here that I think people are going to find very interesting and helpful in their businesses. But let's go back in time a little bit and kind of look at maybe how you got started, and I guess kind of tangential to that, you were, or maybe you still are, and this is new to me, but a group fitness instructor. Is that correct?
Yes, I am. That was kind of like my little play job that I had while I was at university. And I thought, I won't be doing that while I get my grown-up job. And sure enough, I was able to juggle both. And to this day, I still teach a couple of classes a week.
I love that. So, I mean, yeah, we worked together, and I did not know that. So I was like, wow, I'm gonna have to ask Vanessa about this. Talk to me about because I know you're very health focused. It seems to me, from what I know of you, I mean, it's a priority in terms of your health and well-being. But for you, what do you think, kind of in terms of fitness? How does that play into one's performance in their career or in their business? How do you kind of look at the connection between those two?
It plays a massive role. And I think, if people can show that they can really take care of themselves and look after themselves physically and mentally, then surely that goes a long way into their leadership skills. I don't think anyone wants to report to anyone who's like tired and exhausted and can't look like they can get their own stuff together. So I've always kind of felt that, and I've always kind of had this idea that even through my corporate career that I was able to be way more productive when I was definitely physically healthier. So if I was exercising, if I could keep my classes going, running and weights and all of that kind of thing, if I could keep that going, then I was way more productive. I would get way more done in less time with less effort, and I was a bit more delightful to be around as
Yeah,
well.
right.
So yeah, I think it's a massive plus when you've got people that are working in high performance roles.
Yeah, my wife definitely says that I'm more enjoyable to be around once I've got my morning exercise in. So I totally get that. I'm thinking just the devil's advocate here. So the person who's joining us right now going, yes, I know I should be exercising more or taking better care of myself or eating better, but it's hard. I'm busy. I have young kids or old parents, or I'm stretched. Like how do you think about that? Because we all have so much going on in our lives typically that health is often an area that tends to kind of get put to the side. What's your approach been to making sure that it remains a priority and actually gets done?
I have the mindset that I can't take care of others unless I take care of myself. So I will always be my number one priority so that therefore I can be the best that I can be for others around me. And that's for my family, for my clients, and friends. So when you sort of approach it like that, it just becomes a priority that it goes in the diary first. So it's not something that I squeeze in around the edges. It's like it's in the diary first, and everything else needs to fit in around that. And sometimes it is harder. We need to go easy on ourselves. That like sometimes I just need to skip a day if I'm like on planes traveling for work and things like that. That can be harder, but I also factor that in if I'm going away. I always take my exercise gear, and even to the point where I've had some days where I'm actually really quite, I might only have literally 15 minutes between meetings. If I'm working from home, I know that sounds crazy, but I will be in active wear from the bottom, and I'll pop a jacket on the top, and I will literally get like, maybe 10 minutes of weights done between one meeting, and then 20 minutes of weights done between another meeting. Like sometimes we just have to break it up, like, but just
Yeah.
get it done.
So that mindset, that belief of kind of taking care of yourself first, that you can take care of others, reminds me, like, being on an airplane, they talk about the oxygen mask coming down and making sure that you put it on yourself before you put it on others. Is that like, when did that develop for you? That not only was that a belief that you had, but actually a practice that you had in terms of living it? Is that something that has been with you from like much earlier in your life, or is it something that you developed more in more recent years?
Yeah, no, I think I've always been really active, and I think I've always kind of known it intuitively. But now we have so much more research that shows that exercise is great for all the neurotransmitters in the brain. It's great for the concept of neurogenesis, which is the production of new neurons. We know that now that we can think more strategically, more creatively when we have moved. If you look at the
Yeah.
MRI of a brain of someone that's been sitting still for 2 hours versus someone that's just been up and moving, like one basically looks dead and the other's like creating new connections and all of this kind of
Wow.
thing. So it's like I think we kind of have it intuitively, but now we've got a lot of research to prove it. So that's just consolidated my belief on that.
Yeah. Um, I do promise that we will get into more consulting and business stuff in a moment here, but I think that just, mindset, fitness, health is such a critical part of being able to create a successful business. And in many cases, it does get put to the side, doesn't get the attention that it deserves, but it's very hard to create like a long-term, sustainable, successful business if you're not taking care of yourself, which is why I wanted to spend a bit of time with you on this subject, because I know that it's one that not only, do you kind of ingrain into the work that you do, but you also live it in your own life. So you mentioned one thing, I call it like a tip in terms of making sure that you prioritize putting time to exercise or take care of yourself into your calendar. And for me, that's also a massive step that or I should say, an important step that I take as well. It's like if something's not in my calendar, it doesn't get done. And making sure that you keep that as a priority. What other tips is there, or is there anything else that you do that you find from a productivity perspective or a health perspective that you think like, this is something that I do, it works really well. I think more people could benefit from this. Anything that kind of comes up for you?
I think just kind of create a routine. So the more that you have to think about it and the more that you overthink it, the less likely it is to happen. So I've got things like, even when I'm teaching my classes, like I teach on Thursday lunchtimes, Monday night. Like I just don't even think about it. It just has
Right.
to get done because my name's on the timetable. So I think there's a lot of energy that goes into the actual logistics of
Mm.
getting it done. And so I think if you can take out that as much as possible and just make routine out of the non-routine. When I travel, I stay at the same hotels, so I know how the gym works, and I don't have to like give energy to that when I'm trying to work that out. So yeah, just save as much. We call it cognitive energy. That's a big part of our process with our clients as well. But just save as much cognitive energy as you can, and just make it as easy as possible.
I think that's such a great point because it's so true. When I think about if I kind of transfer that concept over to, let's say, consultants and doing their marketing to build their business, people spend so much time thinking about how to market or what to say and what might go wrong. And instead of actually just like reaching out to somebody or picking up the phone and right. So that so much time is spent thinking, and that time could be spent in taking action. The work that you do with clients, so I know you have a lot of kind of understanding of that, the time versus, thinking concept or time to think versus action. What else is going on inside of people's minds, or what else is happening there that you think is important for people to maybe recognize, or that they might benefit from if they better understood some of the mechanics of that concept?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. There's how do you kind of structure your days to make things easier for you? And then there's also the mindset side of things. And interestingly, the physical side of things, like when you're physically healthy, chances are your brain is thinking more helpfully as well. So it's more inclined, it builds psychological capital. So it's more
Mm.
inclined to be able to think about what's the best that can happen out of reaching out to this potential client versus what's the worst that can happen. And so I think if I start with the structure first, one of the things that we talk about with our clients is that we really only have 4 hours a day of heavy cognitive energy available to us. So do the maths, we're working a lot more hours than that. And I'm the last person to say we should be working less hours. I love working. So I'm not going to say that. And a lot of our clients love working. A lot of our clients are, lawyers and people like that who, if you just went in there and said work less hours, they'd laugh you out of there. So we don't do that. But it's not the time that we work, it's the way that we spend our cognitive energy while we're working. So if you're not spending it correctly, you could take 6 hours to do something that could really only take you 4 hours if you were using it correctly.
Mm.
So that automatically frees up time. So we do what we can to help people understand that if you've got 4 hours of really heavy cognitive energy, that's the start. That's the time when you do your heavy cognitive work. So if you feel that like reaching out to clients or potential clients is quite heavy for you, then that would be the time that you would do that. Don't waste that heavy cognitive energy time doing something that's like really light to you. Make sure that you're doing the light stuff during your light time. So if you maximize those 4 hours, get the heavy cognitive work done, you can get a lot more done in less time with less effort. So that's kind of like a structure of the day situation. And then you've got the mindset side of things, which is, people have so many, and this is a whole different conversation, but we have so many like limiting beliefs, and our brain is wired for defense. It's not wired to do anything amazing, really. So that's why it's quite easy to hack, which is good when you understand it. So if we can understand where do these limiting beliefs come from, why do we have them, what even are they for us? They're different for everybody. They generally come down to a will I look stupid kind of psychological fear. So if we can get people to understand that and then go, no, flip this mindset, especially when it comes to building a business, because it's like, I remember when I first started in the business, it was, I remember leaving my corporate job going, okay, I'm 95% sure I'm onto something here, and I'm 5% completely wetting myself, but I'll take those odds and we'll give it a go. But there's so many of these fears and limiting beliefs that can kick in, and it was like, well, know that they're there, but we can't give energy to those. We just need to make sure that we're focusing on what's the best that can happen. And so I guess having this mindset of just adding value, and one of the big reasons I do what I do is because I saw when I worked in corporate, so many people were working in a way that was very busy but not necessarily productive. And not only that, there was a lot of people getting sick and suffering burnout, and a lot of sickness that really kind of didn't need to happen. And so I'm absolutely OCD about helping people be more successful, but also without the burnout, without the mental health problems, without sickness, all of this side of things. And so when you think about it, burnout is really just overspending cognitive energy. So people think, oh, but I'll do something on the weekend that will stop me getting burnt out during the week. It's like, well, yes, that's part of it. But if you spend your whole weekends just recovering from feeling exhausted from the week, you're not doing the week right. So we need to systemically change the way that we operate during the week and while we are at work to make life easier for us. So that's how we structure it. It's our mindset around it. How do we make sure that we're just really coming from this idea of adding value to people? So I find that that really fills my cup when I'm reaching out to either prospective clients or clients that are already in my network to re-engage. It's like, it's just add value. I just want
Yeah.
people to have information that they wouldn't have had if it wasn't for us. I want them to ideally implement something that they wouldn't have implemented if it wasn't for us. And if they end up deciding to engage with us, great. And if they don't, that's great too.
So Vanessa, I want to, you mentioned a whole bunch of things that I think are extremely valuable for people to kind of double click into and spend a bit more time thinking about, or at least kind of observing how it overlays on top of their schedule and their activities. But you talked about the difference or kind of distinction between heavy cognitive load or times that are like more for heavy work and times that are maybe for lighter work. I know that the people joining us right now are probably thinking, well, in a typical day, when is the heavy time and when is the light time? So is it more like an AM, PM type of thing, or does it depend on the person? Or what are you seeing across the research and across the work that you've done with clients as well, so that people can start to think about, when should I be doing the stuff that is a bit heavier or harder for me as opposed to the easier stuff?
Yeah, so everyone's really different on this one. And I think kind of the world is a bit more skewed to morning people because there typically are a few more of those. And the research, depending on what you see, probably about 60% roughly of people are morning people. Then a few other, about 20% are sort of like the neutrals, a bit behind that. And then you've got 20% of people who are like kind of like your classic night owls who, quite frankly, should
Right.
work on a different continent to where they are. And so the world's kind of skewed to that. But then some people will have like 4 hours in the morning and then they're fairly useless in the afternoons. Some people will have sort of like 2 hours and 2 hours. Like for me, my most productive time is probably from 9 a.m. till 11 a.m. And then I get another burst of after lunch. That's why I tend to exercise at lunch when I can, because then that I'm not cognitively great at that time. So I may as well go and move. And then that turbocharges my brain for the afternoon so that I get a lot more done with those hours of power, as we call them. So that's just me. But I think, if we can help people to sort of like just kind of keep a log, maybe over a few week period, it's kind of like, how did you feel at the end of that hour? Would you say that you felt more productive, or were you kind of like, my mind's wandering a little bit? And, we've got this perception that we should be working evenly throughout the day, and that's just not neuroscientifically how it works.
Yeah.
So let's not beat ourselves up for not being as productive at certain times than others. And then once you can kind of tap into those particular hours, then you can start to think about what work you should be doing during that time. You might have clients that are cognitively harder than others. So is there a way that you can try to be, really plan your diary so that you're seeing them at certain times versus other times? Knowing what work is cognitively lighter for you, so that whenever you go, you know what, I'm actually a little bit spent, but I can still probably just do that, then you can still get really productive by getting stuff done that's not really taking a lot of energy from you. So you can really, if you start to implement that, you can probably get an extra, somewhere along the lines of an extra 2 to 3 hours of effective time per day. So it's not managing our time that's the issue. We need to manage our energy.
Yeah, I love that. So much of that is about, or at least beginning with being self-aware. And as you said, like noticing how your body, your mind, or your energy is going, and then not fighting it, but kind of leaning into it and making the most of it. So, all right, let's now kind of go to around 2016, when I believe that's when you started your company.
Yeah, we rebranded in 2016. We
Okay.
actually started in 2012, but yeah, 2016 we kind of rebranding, and we're starting to, really kind of really work on our messages and all that kind of stuff. And we went,
Well,
right, we're actually
so
really in business now. We need to try to behave like grown-ups.
yeah, so talk to me about that. What was the difference between starting in 2012 and then 4 years later, 2016, deciding let's step up our game? Kind of give me a bit of a before and then and after. What were the main changes, or what were the main things that you were feeling that you needed to, or I guess that caused you to actually have that mindset of let's level things up?
Well, I think, I like, I'm a corporate girl, really. So I didn't know whether I was even going to like consulting life. I didn't know, like, it was a big thing, right? To sort of like leave that big cushy corporate job. And then I knew I wanted to coach, and I knew I wanted to help people in this space. But when you think about it, high performance coaching 10 years ago was still fairly embryonic, and it wasn't, sort of as much of a thing. So I was kind of up against that as well. So, so I think, and I was quite lucky. I met my now business partner, Alex, at that time as well. She was working in the UK, and we were very much aligned with what we were doing. And so we kind of teamed up, and I guess I was, the more that you do it, and the more that you get the success, the more you realize that, oh wow, like, we're in business. Like, I'm I'm doing it. So whether there was part of me that kind of, was a little bit more, let's see how it goes first. I don't know. But then it was like, wow, we're really in business, and people are really loving this. And yeah, so and I think we changed our name to Next Evolution Performance, because one of our large corporate clients, when they were selling us internally, they already had like some mainstream, global leadership work that they were doing, and they were selling us internally as the next evolution of leadership coaching. And we went, oh, actually, we really like that. And then we did more and more on the research side of things. So then we were kind of like, yeah, that really fits in nicely with us. So, so that was when we kind of rebranded. And then again, you sort of go, oh, yep, things are going pretty well. And then it was probably around the pandemic, when obviously things exploded for our business, because it was, obviously everyone was worried about, mental health and leading teams through hybrid, and, all of this kind of stuff that happened. And that was when we went, oh my gosh, we're just ridiculously busy, but we didn't want to start putting on salaried coaches and all of that kind of thing. And we really needed to take the business to the next level so that we could get it out there further. But we were really kind of stuck in terms of systems and processes. And, I'm not really at one with technology either. So I had to kind of go against that. So we knew that we needed to like scale and get better at what we were doing, and get get better like systems and processes, but like we're good with humans and human performance. We're not so great with like business and business performance. So
Right.
yeah, that was when we just had more questions than we had answers. So we were like, okay, we need to really step this up.
When you left the corporate world and you and Alex co-founded the company, how did you go about getting the first few clients for the business?
From my existing network. So I was quite lucky. I was in, well, not lucky, it was by design, a lot of hard work.
There we go. Yeah.
But I was in sales. So I was head of sales for a global mutual fund company based down here in Australia and New Zealand. And so from that, I had so many contacts, and I'd always been in sales. So I knew all the salespeople from a whole other bunch of mutual funds, from a lot of investment banks, a lot of insurance companies. So very lucky to have had a really wide network to start with.
Mm,
So I really just kind of like tapped into my existing network, because a lot of my contacts had kind of grown up and they were all now heads of sales.
right.
And so I really just tapped into that existing network and just started off there, and that got the ball rolling and never looked back from there, I guess.
And for those wondering who might be in a similar position, saying, yeah, maybe they've already been consulting for a while, but they've never really leveraged their network, or maybe they've just kind of forgotten to over time and not really paid much attention to it. What's the approach that worked best for you? Was this as simple as sending an email to somebody and saying, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? Here's what I'm doing now. I'd love to reconnect. Or do you do something different?
Yeah, so it was a lot of just catching up with people as well. Like, that was 10 years ago.
Right.
And that was what people did back then. We
Yeah.
actually like got together face to face and did it
Right.
really old school. So it was generally like emails. I would reach out to people, say, hey, this is what I'm doing now, but I also kind of like put a question in there. So I'd really love to pick your brains on X. So I was blown away by how people were willing to support me. It's like, yes, people were, I didn't get anyone just go, no, I'm too busy to give you half an hour of my time to help you. Like that
Mm,
just wasn't a thing. So I just basically filled the diary. And I guess I was lucky because sales was not something that really worried me, because that was my background, right? So like I knew the process, I knew how to do that. So that didn't really bother me. I just kind of like went, you know what, you've got to just get out there and meet people and see where these conversations go.
yeah.
And they would either just go, actually, that sounds pretty great. Let's do something for our team. Or it was like, oh, actually, we don't need anything like this right now, but maybe for later. Or actually, have you spoken to so and so, so and so, and so and so? And so you talk to one person and you end up getting another 5 people to speak with. And that was pretty powerful back then. That kind of like, it was all of, it was chaos, because I didn't have any like great systems and processes and follow up and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I really did sort of make sure that I leveraged my existing network quite well, because that was kind of
Yeah.
all I knew, and it worked. Yeah.
So, I mean, with a background in sales and spending so many years in sales, right, you have no problem reaching out to people, having conversations, right? So you're confident on that side. What do you tend to see that others around you, or just those that who maybe don't have that same level of experience and track record in sales? Where do you think like the big opportunity is for people? What are they not doing that they should be doing, or where are they making mistakes?
Yeah, I think just having a system as a starting point, like you just have to reach out to people. Like you just need to do that. You can't overthink that. You just
Mm,
need to reach out to people. And I think having the mindset of you're not actually selling, like you're adding value, and people are totally fine when you're adding value to them. And what's the worst that can happen? Like it's a numbers game. If someone doesn't find that what you have to say is valuable, then someone else will.
right.
So I think having the confidence just to have, as think of it like a numbers game, but adding value. And if you can think of it that way, then you're not overthinking the phone call, and you're not overthinking the email, and you're not overthinking everything. The more that we overthink, that's when things start to go awry. So don't spend cognitive energy on overthinking. Just get out there and add value and get that done.
Yeah. Yeah. Great advice. So you kind of start to allude to this a little bit, but I'd love to go a bit deeper into the kind of the chapters of the business and the evolution, no pun intended, right, of your company. So you and Alex co-founded it, and then I'm wondering like the progression of the team, and then towards the model of, I know now what you're exploring more is around licensing and so forth. So just walk us through, if it's the two of you from day one, what does that look like as you move forward in the months and years ahead? What changes were made, and kind of take us to where you are today?
So I think structurally, yes, it was just us. Then I found that I was needing an assistant. So we have to practice what we preach. So basically, I kept a log of everything that I found heavy that I had to do. When you first start out, like you're literally doing everything, and I kept a log of it. And then that was probably sort of like the first thing that I went to was like, I really need someone just to take care of all my admin, logistics, travel, bookings, all of this kind of stuff. And so I did hire someone for that quite early. I probably should have done it even earlier. I think my advice to people is, when you are not sure if you can do it anyway. And probably if you think you can't do it, just do it anyway. So the quicker that you can get all of that admin stuff off your table is it's so much easier. And so that was probably the first thing. And then we started to toy the idea of like having other coaches. And so we did have some coaches that came and joined us, but the model wasn't right and they were too new in the scheme of things. We spent more time trying to help them on the business coaching side, and that's what we wanted to help them with. And so, and this is why now, and since finding consulting success, now we make it that if people are joining us, they have to do your momentum program as a condition of joining us, because it's just such a great succinct way to be able to get them up to speed on that side of things. And then we help them on the coaching and all that sort of stuff, and everything's very specific to us. So so we had some coaches that started working with us that did not go well, and it just sucked the energy from me, and I found that really, really hard. So it was like, we've got to practice what we preach here. This is not working. So we needed to basically pull it back. It was Alex and I again, and then we now have someone up in Singapore who's amazing. We met her. She runs her own business, and then she does a lot of our overflow work up there, which is fantastic. So it's great to have a resource up in Asia, and that kind of helps us manage time zones a little bit better as well. And we've just had another coach start with us in New Zealand, but we now think we've got the model right in terms of, if it's a new coach, we have a model for them, and they need to go through your program first.
Right.
But then we're now in a position, because of all the streamlining that we did in terms of productizing our business, and we productized our workshops. So we really grappled with this whole idea of like, we wanted to still be tailored, but we needed more processes. And so we had to get that. There's a real tension there, right? Like,
Yeah.
and to make sure that we got that tension between still staying tailored for people, but having the bases of everything that was much easier to sort of piece together and off the shelf. So we did a lot of work productizing all of our workshops. And to be fair, Alex and I didn't think that we'd ever have coaches working with us again. And it wasn't until we went through all of these systems and processes to really get our scale working in a way that we put our fees up significantly. We got our sort of now better at managing our pipeline. We got our CRM functioning really well, and all of this kind of stuff. And so we can still stay tailored, but our proposal templates, like our business development process, has just been really really shortened, which has been fantastic and freed up so much capacity. So it wasn't until we went through that, and particularly the productization process, where we found that actually we've got way more capacity for ourselves now. But in addition to that, that then put us in a framework where we went, you know what, we could actually probably license this to other coaches who are already running great coaching business, but interested in adding neuroscience and less interested in reading, reading like 3,000 academic papers on neuroscience.
Right.
We can package that, and we can make that available for other coaches to just pay us a monthly fee, which is lovely, because we want to build this great coach community where we can all leverage from each other and learn from each other. But this is kind of like a bolt on to they're already running a successful business, and that way we're going to attract other successful coaches. So so that's kind of like the model that we went to, but we would never have thought to take on any more coaches after we'd been burned so badly previously to the license. So,
and sorry to interrupt, Vanessa, but I'd love, because I think in every, whatever people want to call it, a mistake or a learning experience, a blow up, whatever, like there's a lesson inside of that, right? So when you say that things didn't go well, you first brought on these coaches. It sounds like it was at a time where you had not yet fully productized some of your systems or your offerings, right? There wasn't maybe as much structure, and certainly was not as streamlined as it is today after everything that you've gone through. But if you could add a little bit more kind of color and detail, it's like, what didn't, when you say it didn't go well, what didn't go well? Looking back, just the benefit of hindsight, what do you think the cause of that was? And for somebody who might be like entering that phase where they're thinking about building up or adding to their team of those who not only will just like work inside of the business in terms of admin or design or, you know, content, but somebody who's actually delivering, help us to kind of see what was going on there and what were the lessons that you learned from that?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, looking back, like we take full responsibility for that, because we probably weren't as organized as what we could have been in terms of being able to therefore just say, here's the clarity in what we're offering and how we go about that. And so we didn't have as much clarity for ourselves, which meant it was very hard to provide that clarity to other people starting as well. And yeah, so I think when you're far more clear around, you know, also the kind of coaches that we want and what characteristics do we need them to have, you know, we probably weren't as clear around that as probably what we are now. So there was a whole lack of clarity on our part from, you know, the systems, the productization, which just wasn't there. So yeah, there was a lot of things that we definitely didn't have in place before we kind of went, oh yeah, you know, we definitely want more capacity now. So we want to take on more coaches. And it was like that we should have freed up more capacity with ourselves first by getting all of our systems and processes and productizing, and then in a far better position to be able to have a great offering for other people as well.
So it sounds almost like, just to maybe kind of try and summarize this or add some clarification. Is it correct in saying that at that time, kind of version 1, you were bringing people in who you want to help with delivery and other aspects of the business, but the materials weren't necessarily created for them at that time? So you had some stuff in place, but it was like, you're bringing people in, you need to train them, but you're trying to train them as materials are still being created, as opposed to version 2, when you did this the next time, you already had the systems, you had the documents, you had the structure. So now you're able to bring people in, and essentially the whole onboarding, the whole experience, the training is so much easier because you're putting them into saying, here's what we're going to take you through. It's all kind of organized. And so now your attention could just be on supporting them through that, as opposed to trying to create and kind of manage all these different plates at one time. Is that kind of what you?
That's right. Exactly. And we still tweak, like, you know, there's still changes that we make that we still tweak along the way, but we kind of feel like, all right, now things feel like they're okay for now. Instead of feeling like we're spinning a million plates at the same time, we now feel like, okay, well, we've got some things that we're more in control of when we make things better or tweak a process or something like that. So yeah, we're not making holus bolus changes anymore.
And you mentioned, so right now you have the core team, right? The 4 of you, it sounds like. Walk me through kind of the thought process of adding a bunch of new people. Like, so as you're continuing to grow, it sounds like the decision is not to just bring on more and more full-time people like into the mix, but rather potentially look at licensing. For those who are kind of thinking through that as well, why is that the path that, you know, you're more interested in taking in terms of licensing this content and licensing how you know, just the knowledge and expertise that you have, as opposed to adding on more full-time people or even part-time people to grow the team internally?
It's a great question. And I think Alex and I grappled with that. We were like, I guess that we had to really think about what is the role that we wanted to do as well. And I didn't leave corporate to then just essentially just run a business. So there's a lot of people where their goal is to make themselves redundant, so the business runs on its own, and they sell it and off they go. That sounds great in theory, but it didn't sit well with us, because we actually really love delivery. We love presenting, we love facilitating workshops, we love seeing people implement and get great change. We love one-to-one coaching, we love team coaching. You know, that's all the ways that we really love to do what we do. So if we were to bring on other people that would do the work for us, and that would mean that, you know, we've got to bring on people who sell, or we just do the selling ourselves. And, you know, while I don't mind doing enough selling to get my book of clients full, I don't want to be just doing that so that then I feed other coaches. So that whole salaried model and bringing people on that way was never really going to work for us, based on, the fact that Alex and I just really love coaching and presenting and facilitating and all of that. So the only way for us to kind of bring on capacity was to sort of say, hey, here's a productized version of what we're doing. Here's all the tools that you'll need. If you're already running a great business and you just want to add this on, then this is a really, really effective way to do it. So, so that way we're not, when other people are still getting their own clients, they're still running their own business, and they're being really successful at that, and that's just allowing us to also be with other really great successful coaches. So I think that was kind of like, once we kind of agreed that, we can actually do this, like, because we didn't even know, like, in terms of like how we were going to scale. We just thought it was going to be by bringing on a bucket load of coaches who would be salaried and we'd have to go out and feed them. And that actually didn't excite us. So we're like, well, how do we scale? So we were kind of looking for different ways and looking for ways that other people had done this previously, as to how do you get the message out there to more people, because we think that what we do is very important work, and it is a very important message that we do want to get out there wider. But we can't do it alone, but we still want to do it.
Yeah.
So we were kind of stuck in that little conundrum there, but we feel like we've got a lot more clarity around that now, which is great.
I think it's, this is just such a really powerful example that there is no one way to do something, right? And I love that for you guys, you've both identified that you really enjoy doing the work. You want to continue delivering and being a part of that, and not removing yourself, as so many kind of business owners talk about. And you're finding a way that you can still accomplish that, but still continue to make and have a greater impact beyond just, what you're able to do yourself. So, I think that's just, it's really exciting. And I hope it's a good example and kind of demonstration for others, just to know you can always, as creative as you are, right? You can find a model that's going to work for you. And often it's going to be some kind of a hybrid or a blend of a more standardized model. But yeah, this is just a really, I think, a really great example. I want to also ask you, Vanessa, when, somebody goes to your website, you have what's called, I think it's called the energy credit system.
Yes,
right. So you kind of develop this framework that has 3 parts to it. And the whole goal, like in the center of it, is optimal performance. Can you just talk for a moment about the 3 parts that kind of create the system? And then I'm wondering, how have you found having kind of this framework or this diagram to be helpful for you in business?
Absolutely. So the energy credits is kind of like our whole framework is around neuroscience, and it's around even more specifically around this idea of cognitive energy. And so, that's a big part of relieving burnout, as we said earlier, is understanding how to manage cognitive energy much better. And so we kind of put this 3-pronged process together, which means that to have optimal energy and optimal performance, there's really 3 aspects to it. So there's the physical side of things. So what can we do physically to be able to promote our brain function? So I'm not focused on everyone should become an Olympian or, look a certain way. It's just literally, what can we do physically that we can promote brain function? And that's not just fitness and nutrition. It's like, it's natural light, it's your environment, it's, are you working in an office that's too cold? Like, do you have to commute in rush hour? Anything that affects your physical being. And then we've got the mental side of things, which is, we need to have the foundations of performance mindset in place. So we talk a lot then around psychological safety and accountability. So often we see in businesses, large and small, accountability is actually really low. And you get the whole, but I would have done my bit, but I didn't get my bit done because so-and-so didn't get their bit done. And next thing you know, we've got all this last minute dumping on people, and people get really stressed because now they've got to do things at really short notice. And that's really frustrating. And that's a really big reason that people are spending what we call these energy credits, is because with frustration. So we have a lot of mental and emotional side of things as to how we just bleed energy credits and we don't even realize. And then we've got the neural side of things, which is how do we hack into our brains around how do we structure our days, weeks, months, and years better. So that's taking holidays over the longer term, but it's also how do we structure those days for that 4 hours of cognitive work and all of that kind of thing. So when you put all these together, because people are always like, oh, how do we get more energy? And it's like, the first thing is you need to stop spending it unnecessarily. So
Mhm.
imagine that we have 100 energy credits in a day, and yes, we can replenish them, but most people overspend. So the first thing is, it's like, just stop spending them unnecessarily by structuring your days well and having the right mindset and having psychological safety and accountability in your businesses. And then you can start to go to more advanced performance mindset. And, that's when we love working with people on this whole, targets have just gone up 20%. How do we get excited by that rather than freaking out by it? So,
Right.
and that's that really, opportunistic can-do mindset, and you're creating new neural pathways and all this kind of stuff. So we do a lot of that, but to be fair, over the pandemic, we've kind of had to go back to basics from, the accountability, psychological safety, all of that sort of thing. So when you use all of those together and you understand each of those, for both individuals, but also for teams, then you can start to really optimize energy. And when you optimize energy, that is your currency. So many
Mhm.
people say, oh, I need more staff. And it's like, you don't. If your existing staff is coming to work every day with energy being about a 6 out of 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, it's like, you don't need, the last thing you need is more tired staff. You
Mhm.
need the existing people that you have to get their energy levels up much higher. Then they're getting more done in less time. Then they're more delightful to be around. Then they're more accountable. Then they've got more of a can-do attitude. And that's when you really lift the high performance culture. So this is why this energy credit system, when we understand that and how to maximize that, that is how we really optimize performance for people.
Love it. And the graphic, the visual, or the framework itself, how does that kind of manifest, or how are you using it inside of the business? Is this something that you're actively like giving presentations on, or talking to clients about the three different parts? Or I'm just wondering, like, oftentimes people maybe see a graphic like this, or they'll hear about the importance of developing a framework or some kind of a visual, but I'm wondering, how are you actually applying it in your business, and where you find it to be most effective?
Yeah, so we tend to use it, obviously, on the website, so that people can, they've generally seen it by the time that we have a conversation with them. We
Right.
have a 45-minute performance call, which is when people are interested. We kind of just discover a little bit more about them and what they need. So we just ask questions for all of that, which is great. And we use it as part of that. So we would say, literally more towards the end of this, it's kind of like, hey, this is our kind of approach. We can definitely help you. Is that something that you'd like to hear more of? So we only really touch on it. We would probably bring that up, share that slide in that performance call, and it would literally be like 2 minutes, no more. But it's just enough to give them, I guess, kind of like confidence that we have a
Mm-hmm.
system around this. Yes, here's our system. We apply it differently for everybody because we want to make sure that it's really focused and tailored on your needs. But here's the system, and we're really good at this. And this has taken us, a lot of research to look at, and it's taken a lot of, I guess, kind of like practice and putting it into practice with clients, that this is our system, and we might apply it differently, but we have a system, and that just gives them confidence.
Yeah. All right. So I want to kind of shift into, before we wrap up, a little bit of, call it lightning round, call it whatever you will. It'll be kind of short, maybe questions here, but I'm wondering, over the last 6 to 12 months, Vanessa, what is maybe one challenge or kind of big learning that you've had, or that you've experienced, that has made the business stronger? So now looking back, something that you've gone through over the last 6 to 12 months that you feel, again, it was a challenge, but you've now overcome it, or it was just a learning or an experience, but looking back on it, it's like, yeah, we're ahead because we went through this. Anything stand out
Mm,
for you?
definitely. I mean, I think, we're working with you at Consulting Success has been fantastic. We've had that community there, which has been really great. But I think just going through the processes of like getting your message right first, just going back to basics. And I think one of the biggest things we've taken from you is this idea of imperfect action. It's
Mm.
like, just start. And I say this, with my clients as well. So, it's probably got to practice what I preach as well on that one, I think. But, I always say to people, it's like, we call it the to-do list versus the to-do list. And it's like, so many people just spend cognitive energy just going, what's next on the list? And they also spend cognitive energy. I had this exact conversation with a client yesterday. It was like, he's actually made really good progress. Like, he's probably about 75% of the way there on a few things that we've been working with together. But in his mind, he's like, it's binary. It's like, either it's 100% done or it's 0% done. And it's like, no, we need to really focus on where we are making lots of progress along the way, because that then gives you a sense of accomplishment. It then gives you momentum to keep going. So I really love this idea of imperfect action. So, we are by no means done. I think it's something that's never done, because you need to keep tweaking. But at
Sure.
least now we're at the stage where we are tweaking, which is great. And I think being mindful and open to that, but getting the systems and processes in place to really scale and free up capacity has made a massive difference to our business.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I wonder about books. I know that you are when you're not reading research papers and things of that nature, you're probably reading or listening to some books here or there. If we kind of look at the last year or so, or even 6 months, is there a book, can be fiction or nonfiction, just anything that you've really enjoyed reading or listening to that you might want to suggest that others take a look at?
I would love to say that I read a lot of fiction, but I don't really. Even on holidays, like, I'm still probably reading some sort of neuroscience or research or something. I just
Yeah.
love it. I do the odd fiction here and there, which I do enjoy. So Leanne Moriarty's books, I do enjoy her from the fiction side of things, and she's a great Australian author as well. And but I think I do a lot of on the research. I probably don't read as many business books as I used to. But I have just recently read, if people like Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep, that's a pretty well-known book. There's another book now called Lifetime, and it's all about circadian rhythms by Russell Foster. And that really just goes to show that we really do need to make sure that we're working with our circadian rhythm, because our whole health, physically and mentally, it's kind of like almost like our body is just a carefully orchestrated symphony. And if we do anything like not sleep right or something like that, then a lot of these systems and processes in our bodies don't function as well as they could. And therefore, that's leading to a lot of health issues. So that's pretty cool. And I've also just about to finish reading Love and Work by Marcus Buckingham. He's a great presenter. He does a lot of research on high performance as well. And he really does focus on those areas. We have to do things that we love. And it doesn't even have to be 100% of the time. It just needs to be at least 20% of the time. But if we can get to that and really focus on these things that we love, and that really, goes to what we preach as well, because then that takes a lot less cognitive energy, because your neural pathways are already set up for that. So that's actually a really good book as well. So I highly recommend that for a read.
All right. Well, we're going to have all that linked up in the show notes. And then the final thing that I want to make sure that we can put in front of everybody is how they can learn more about you, Vanessa, more about Alex, and what you both are doing over at your company. So where's the best place for people to go to learn more about everything you guys have going on?
Absolutely. Our website is a good place to start. So that's nextevolutionperformance.com. And from there, you can also go to our online training platform. We also have an online course, especially about our foundational work on energy credits and structuring your days better and all that kind of thing. And that's on nextevolutionenergy.com. And we are also very easy to stalk on LinkedIn. So Vanessa Bennett and Alex Davids, we would love to see you on LinkedIn. We pump out a lot of free information. We just want to add value. So hopefully those posts are super interesting as well. So feel free to stalk us there.
Okay. Well, we're going to have all that again linked up in the show notes. Vanessa, thank you so much for coming on here today and sharing. There's so much. I mean, the amount of, I think I'm just going to say, like, powerful ideas and insights. Much of what you said resonates with me in terms of just the energy and really kind of auditing that and being self-aware. I think people not only will be able to increase their overall productivity, but more importantly, in my mind, you're going to do more of the work that you enjoy, right? Or that you love, that you said, and just feel like, wow, I'm making a lot more progress than maybe I expected, because now I'm aligning myself in a way that is going to be better for me as a person and for what I want to accomplish. So I hope everyone really enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. And Vanessa, I look forward to talking with you soon.
Thanks so much, Michael.